Welcome back to another episode of Calcio Culture. This week was match week 1 in Serie A. It is finally here. The season has begun. Kevin De Bruyne has made his mark with Napoli in their first win of the season. Cremonese unfortunately comes into San Siro, upsets Milan off a fresh promotion. Gasperini era officially began in Roma with a big win. Cristian Chivu era also started for Inter and started with a banging win, 5-0 at home against Torino. Our boy Nico Paz dominated for Como, leading them to a huge win over Lazio. There was a 95th minute winner out in Sardinia. Yildiz shined in Juve's first game of the season, and Jonathan David got off the mark as well with his first league goal in his debut. And last but not least, Scamacca, off an injury last season, is back on the score sheet. A ton of storylines, a ton happening. This is why we love Serie A. This is why we do it. I am your host today, Logs. I'm here with both my co-hosts for the very first time in a very long time, Mats and Vos. We could not miss the coverage from this past week. Fellas, how we feeling?
Great intro. One correction. It was not a winner in Sardinia. It was an equalizer. And obviously I had to say that because it was my beloved Cagliari, and they are back and they are looking very good this season. Great weekend. I watched almost every game, so I'm really happy that it's back. Calcio's in full swing. I think a little bit less drama than last year. Last year at the beginning, I just remember it being chaos for like 3 or 4 weeks. And this was kind of
10 weeks
last weekend. Yeah, 10 weeks, true. That's why we had no Colpies for a while. But yeah, it's back. I'm happy it's back. Things went well.
Yeah, I mean, the long await of match week 1 of the Serie A is finally here. Very excited for that. I'm obviously thrilled because Juventus won, and yeah, so I'm very excited to be breaking down match week 1, getting into some of the storylines, breaking down some of the games. Very excited.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can say it's not very chaotic. I feel incredibly chaotic after this loss over the weekend. It's nice that Mats can say that his team won. It's nice that Vos can pick any team in the league and say that his team won. So that's
Call
great
them
for you
beloved.
guys. The beloved.
Listen, anybody that was listening to this for the last year knows how much I love those bottom of the table matchups. Anytime Cagliari's playing, I'm going to be watching. They're one of my favorite teams in the league.
Well, with that being said, it's great to be back, Paisans. We're here to cover it all. But before we get into the meat, we do have a huge announcement. This season, we will be doing a fantasy league for Serie A. The details and the notes on the league will be passed on by Mats later in the week, probably tomorrow. We're doing this on Tuesday, so possibly Wednesday. Details do be published. However, if you do want to participate, here are the rules. You must be following us on Spotify or on Apple Pods, and you must be subscribed on YouTube. We are trying to grow the brand. We need you, Paisans, and we're getting there. We are growing at an immense pace. Get on the train or get run over. But like I said, follow on Spotify, Apple Pods, subscribe on YouTube. We'll give you the league code and the app. And like always, it's the usual bet. The winner gets a kit of your choosing. So get in the league, follow, subscribe, 5 stars. You know where to find us at Calcio Culture FC on all the sites, X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and streaming on Apple Pods and Spotify.
I'll just get it out of the way now so the Paisans listening can do it while they listen, or we will post it later as well. And if you have our numbers, feel free to reach out because we can text you it as well. But basically just download the app Kickest, Kickest, and then the code is going to be 87253 dash, and these are all caps here, TTWMN. That is code 87253 dash TTWMN. App is Kickest. We will be posting that as well, but feel free to join the league. It's going to be a spicy season this year in the Serie A Fantasy League.
Spicy season in the Calcio.
And it's going to be spicy on the pitch, which brings us to our main segment. This is what we did. If you guys haven't tuned in last year, this is your first season with us. This is kind of our normal episode flow. We're going to go through all the games. We're going to just pick a select few that we want to break down, which are really kind of like the big games. Maybe there's a big storyline. So if you're going to be with us for the rest of the season, we're going to talk about every team. We might not be getting super into your team today, but we will next week. We will the week after. We really will cover everybody. But there was really one place to start. It had to be reigning Scudetto champions, Napoli. They went to newly promoted Sassuolo, who should be in the league. They're very much a Serie A team. It was more the same for Antonio Conte's Napoli. 2-0 win, kind of business as usual for the most part, I would say. Like we said earlier, Kevin De Bruyne got on the score sheet. That was in the 57th minute. And before that, to open the game, Scott McTominay gets his first of the year. Header in the box, exactly what you'd expect from him. More of the same. Clearly going to be used in a similar way this year under Antonio Conte. And what I really want to talk about, guys, here is not necessarily the result, but the way that Napoli set up and the way that Napoli played. Notably, Lukaku is out, which saw Lorenzo Luca start. And then we saw Antonio Conte go a little bit different direction in the midfield. Rather than more of like a traditional 4-3-3 that we saw a lot of last year, he kind of switched up and played Anguissa, De Bruyne, McTominay, and Lobotka all together, which was kind of funky for him. And then Politano off the right. And then in the defense, we saw Gio Di Lorenzo, Amir Rahmani, and then kind of surprised Juan Jesus, which I think is more so a result of Buongiorno and Buchema presumably have some sort of knock. And then no surprise on the left, Mateus Oliveira, who really made a name for himself last season as kind of a left center back and playing as a left back at times. And then the other little bit of drama, if we do want to talk about it, I guess it's a good place to start because it's a quick one. Alex Moret in goal after they just went and spent 30-odd million euro on Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. For me, I like that one. He's a guy that won you the league last year. He was great. No reason not to play him. So I guess we could start there.
Yeah, I mean, just going off of like the not playing the new signings, that's just like a classic Italian Serie A Antonio Conte thing. For whatever reason, they feel like they need to let them get integrated into the team. So that's probably all Conte is doing there. I expect to see Buongiorno and Sam starting pretty soon. Although Rahmani, we know what type of player he is. But I wasn't shocked to see the new signings not necessarily hitting or starting right away, besides De Bruyne, because who he is and what he brings to the table. But yeah, it was definitely, when I first saw the lineup, it was definitely interesting to see. I loved that Conte went for all four of the midfielders starting. We did see a couple pictures on Twitter that he's been practicing with that lineup, with all four of them on the pitch. They all bring something a little bit different, but still a lot of similarities between them. And they can absolutely dominate any game with those four starting. I was very interested to see how Scott was going to do, specifically because he's in a completely new position, being in like the left mid, call it, position, where they did sign Noah Lang for that flank, and he did exactly what he did last year. He made late runs into the box, he got on crosses, he was a workhorse up and down the pitch, and he scored a goal. And so it's looking like he's gonna, doesn't matter where you play this man, he is going to do what Scott McTominay does, and that is run up and down the pitch, win the ball back, and score goals. Not much more you can ask for there.
I think what Conte did here with surrounding KDB, Kevin De Bruyne, with the midfield trio that they've been running last year that had worked so well, is just allowing him to just be creative, which is what they certainly lost when Kvaratskhelia went to PSG in the winter window last year. Letting KDB float and do whatever he pleases with the skill level that he has, I think really feeds into how they're going to get the best out of him. Because again, we've talked about this all summer long. The legs may not be there, but the creativity and the vision and the skill set is still there. So to surround him with all three of those guys who we've seen been able to lock down anybody's midfield all last season really opens up De Bruyne's best part of his game. And that's, again, the vision, the progression, the creativity, which they lost. I think this was a great showing out of Napoli. And one thing that I don't want to have gone under the radar here is that Sassuolo is a great team. I know they just got promoted. They did incredibly well in Serie B last year. This front line that Sass is going to presumably run out the remainder of the season. Berardi off the right, Pinamonti in the middle, and Loriente, who was actually sold to the Prem. Something fell through. He's back on Sass. That's not an easy front line to defend against, and even without their best, I would say their best back four playing against this, obviously shut out. Great win, great start to the season for them. Last year, we saw Napoli get off to an incredibly slow start. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case here at all. And I think we can't say it enough, but watching Scott out there just jump into the stands and just live the life that he's doing right now, this man is a Paisan through and through. He's never going back to England.
Yeah, and just to kind of break it down a little bit tactically to give people a sense of kind of what it looked like. On paper, it was a 4-1-4-1, Lobotka being that like number 6 midfielder. And then basically what they did was Politano off the right was kind of there to keep the width. If you've ever watched Politano, it was more of the same. If you watched him last year, it was more of the same. Just kind of holding that sideline. Behind him was Di Lorenzo, who's more of a defensive-minded right back, I would say. So he kind of was pinned a little bit deeper. So that's kind of how the right side of the field set up. And then Zambo Anguissa was like the inside right-sided midfielder, is like that number 8 box-to-box guy. And he was kind of anchored to that position the entire game. Lobotka as a 6 did exactly what Lobotka does as a 6. He goes in, picks the ball, progresses play, all that good stuff. And then off the left side of the field is where we saw it get a little bit more creative and I think a little bit more fluid than I would have expected from Antonio Conte. And like we said, Scamacca on paper, left mid. Kevin De Bruyne on paper, left center mid, with Mateus Oliveira as the left back behind them. Scamacca pretty much never played left mid at any point in this game. It was more Mateus Oliveira getting up the field to hold the width. And then at times we saw McTominay being as that left center mid where De Bruyne was technically set up. At times he was a second striker. At times he was the number 10. So he was kind of given the freedom to go be that like attacker and go attack space, which in turn then gave De Bruyne what we saw at Manchester City for so many years. At times he was alongside Lobotka. At times he was in the back line. At times he was a left wing. At times he was on the right side. So it really freed him up to go do what he wanted. And then Lorenzo Luca was just kind of a focal piece up front. Again, kind of more of what I didn't like about him. Like, he isn't really great at anything. He's the second tallest player in the league behind Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, but he doesn't really do anything for you tactically. He doesn't really put in the hard miles. So I still have question marks there. But my big point on this and what I think is interesting now is last season we saw Antonio Conte sometimes play a back 3, sometimes play a 4-3-3. Now we'd see a 4-1-4-1. What do you guys think he's going to do this year? Do you think this is going to be what he rolls out there, or is it going to be game by game? We're going to do some rotation. Like he said, I think Mott's pointed this out a couple weeks ago. Everybody on the team is a starter. So in theory, I think he's got a couple 11s in his head that they're going to use at different times. And I think he's probably just going to go with who's hot. I think that's a big reason why he played Lobotka this game. It's like, stick with the guys that got you there. But I do think there is going to be some malleability and some changes this year.
Without a doubt. And I think that's what was so effective, how Conte was so effective last season. He didn't have the quality that he has this season at his disposal, but we saw him game in, game out, change his formation when needed, which we've never seen him do before. And we saw him win the Scudetto on a team that nobody thought could win the Scudetto besides maybe me. My own point there. But yeah, I mean, now he's got the quality at his disposal to run out a 4-3-3 when needed, to run out a 3-5-2 if needed, to run out this 4-1-4-1 whenever he wants to. And then, like you said, Bose, whatever it is on paper, it can change on the ball, off the ball, in the game, at halftime when he wants to make those changes. So we'll definitely, in my opinion, going to see a lot of different formations from Antonio Conte's Napoli this season. But one thing I wanted to quickly go back to that you mentioned, Vos, is Lorenzo Luca for me did not do next to anything in this game. He didn't look very good to me. And it goes to show with Lukaku being out for maybe 3 months, could be more. We're not really sure right now. We know it's going to be a while. They're definitely going to need to bring somebody else in. They are linked with somebody in Manchester United's Højlund. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but they are going to need to bring in another option here because, one, they don't really have anybody to turn to unless you're going to play like a Scott at striker or a Noah Lang there. But that's one area now because of the injury that they are lacking in depth.
Yeah, I would say they kind of need to get somebody because you can't go. It's such a small sample size on Luca in terms of being on Napoli. but it doesn't seem like he's a guy that can kind of carry you through 4 months as your starter. What we talked about so much with Lukaku last year was like his ability when he wasn't scoring goals to be like a creative force that allowed other guys to go score. And I don't see Luka really doing that. And all he is there to do is put the ball away. But I also would say he's probably not the best guy at that out there, and I think the Højlund link is interesting because I think he can do some of the creative passing that Lukaku did. And it's not like slinging balls across the field, but it's that little bit of link up play that is helpful. And I don't really think Luka has that.
I think where he's better is he can make, he's a fast guy. He can make running behinds. Like he scored a lot for Atalanta with their pace. And we all know what Kevin De Bruyne can do with a through ball into a fast striker with running behind. So they might have to adjust the style of play with Højlund because he's obviously not the best. He's not Lukaku. No one's Lukaku with back-to-basket, back-to-goal play. So you're going to have to adjust it a little bit, but those running behinds will be lethal with De Bruyne. And then one other thing I wanted to just quickly mention on Napoli, which is going to be scary for them, for every team that comes up against them, is they have trees everywhere. And they have Kevin De Bruyne to whip in a cross, who scored on that on a free kick. No one touched it. But the fact that Napoli have 4 guys that are 6'2" and above, the goalie has to respect them getting ahead on it, and he had to react late. And then Kevin De Bruyne has the most bend you've ever seen, and it just went into the back of the net. So that's going to be hard to stop for teams this season.
Anything final?
To be interesting.
Napoli, anything? You good?
No, I think I'm good. I think we covered it all, and it'll remain to be seen what they do around Luka, because I've always had his best interest in mind, but I'm not going to comment on the performance this past weekend.
Okay. Yeah, and on Sassuolo, I think you said everything that needs to be said. I think they're going to be okay.
Logan just talked about Lorenzo Luka like he was his agent.
I'm not going to comment on this performance. All right, on SAS, I think Logan said everything that needed to be said. This is kind of the hardest game you're going to play, one or two of the hardest games, and it's a tough first game to open up your first game back in Serie A. So I'm not going to read too much into it, but they definitely have some good players there. The front three you just said, all guys that have been in the league, all guys that have had success in the league. Domenico Berardi is number 5 in goals scored in Serie A of active players. So guys that have been there, guys that are good in this league, so I think they'll be okay. But that brings us to another team, 2 new teams, or 2 teams with 2 new managers at the San Siro. We had Inter Milan host Torino. Things went really well for one manager and things were really bad for another manager. Inter blew the doors off of Torino 5-0. Goals from Bastoni, who also notched an incredible assist on a cross from like 40 yards out. Marcus Thuram.
It was a classic Bastoni cross, though. Like, he's been doing this for years.
It is true. Marcus Thuram notched 2 goals. Lautaro Martinez off the sheet early this year. And then Boni off the bench gets one. I thought he looked really good when he played. It looked like Marcus Thuram was just out there. There was no drop in quality, which I think is really important, and still being able to play in a similar fashion. From a Torino perspective, we'll come back to Torino because there's not a lot to be said. We'll start on Inter. Cristian Chivu's first game, we had a couple questions about how they were going to line up. It was very Inzaghi Conte. It was like a 3-5-2, it was a 3-5-2 is what it was. The notable change was more so in how the midfield was structured. We still saw it be like a number 6 with 2 8s. The number 6 was Barella in this case, and then Mkhitaryan off the left, Peter Suchis off the right, who had a exceptional game. But the little bit difference was Barella being that number 6 kind of changed things up. That was a really different role for him. And then I think we saw a lot more fluidity than we would have expected in a midfield like this. I think under Inzaghi, it was kind of your number 6 is always your number 6, and then the midfielders kind of stick to their side and push up the field kind of like in that flank. Sometimes they'll come into the back line to help progress play. But in this, the way I'm describing it, and I could be way off, is calling it like a triple pivot. Because at one point in time, Sucic, Barella, Mkhitaryan were all on the same side of the field in a triangle. And then the 3 center backs were on the other side of the field in their own triangle. So it was kind of like when Barella dropped in, Mkhitaryan could take his place. Sucic could go to the right mid. Sucic could go to the cam. Just a lot of moving pieces, and I did like it in that it was kind of progressive thinking from Chivu, putting his stamp on this team. obviously it was very successful with 5 goals. With what I'm concerned about is at times I saw very, very large gaps in this team, particularly between the midfield line and the forward line. And Lautaro Martinez were very much left, or Lautaro and Thuram were very much left on like kind of their own island, which they are good at. But in the past under Inzaghi, they kind of had a number 10 under them, which was usually Makatari. And now with this team, it's kind of like you're pushing everybody a little bit further away from the goal in terms of starting position, which I thought was interesting. I am not sold. I think this game went as well as it did partially because of how bad Torino was. But at the same time, 5 goals, you can't really argue that.
Partially. Torino was fucking awful.
Yeah, we'll talk about
Torino.
Focus on it.
Torino was terrible. I know I'm focused on Inter, but only because I one thing I will echo is that Sucic was awesome, amazing. That buy is now is a candidate for purchase of the summer window. He was phenomenal. He's the new Brozovic. I mean, he was doing it all. Beautiful assist to Thuram.
I can't even compare
balls.
Brozovic. He's so much better. Like in the final third, it's kind of insane. He's very good.
Winning balls left and right.
Yeah.
It seems to be like he's got a deep shot, so he could be a deep threat going into more games here. Well, and Thuram's finishing ability today or the other day, Martinez, great finishing. What I will say though is Torino was horrible. So the fact that this result just kind of, I would say, says more about Torino than it does Inter. I think if this is how Torino plays against a Napoli or a Milan on a good day, like this is the same exact result because it didn't seem very difficult and it didn't look like Inter was even trying that hard. I mean, the ball from Best, don't get me wrong, absolutely fucking stunning, but Thuram, I don't know what the defending was. Thuram just had it was a free header. So to me, this said a lot about how bad Torino could be this season. Inter, way to go out there and get control of that. But to your point about the distance between the forwards and the rest of the squad, leaving Thuram and leaving Lautaro on an island will only work for so long. I think that can be overcompensated for very quickly. So if that continues to be the trend and the tactic that they go with, I don't foresee Inter scoring this many goals that many times.
It was a good showing for Inter. I did not expect a 5-0 win. Obviously, Torino has been in they are Serie A. They just are consistently in 10th. You don't normally have to worry about them getting relegated, although this year we'll have to see because they, to Logan's point, they look terrible. But I still didn't expect Inter to put up 5 on them, but they look very good. What I'd say is Barella was only playing the number 6 role because Hakan was suspended due to games from last season. So he was playing there because there was out of necessity, right? I don't think Barella is going to be playing there a lot this year, although maybe because he played very well in that position and he's so good, you can put him in any position and he will succeed. But in terms of I thought they looked pretty much like they did under Inzaghi in terms of the fluidity. It was just a little bit more direct in their attack, but I didn't like how we saw Mkhitaryan starting again. I don't really understand why they're still starting Mkhitaryan when they have other options.
Cortezi was hurt, by the way.
Okay, perfect. I didn't see that one, but
so they definitely were light in the midfield.
But he was on the bench. Cortezi was on the bench.
He had a knock though. He was doubtful before the game.
But listen, they played well. I think for Inter, if we're gonna look at the positives, what you can take away from this game is last season, Lautaro Martinez did not have his best season, right? He was coming off one of his best seasons ever, an amazing Copa America, and for whatever reason, he really didn't hit the ground running. Maybe he was tired, but he got on the score sheet quick, and then same with Marcus Thuram. Marcus Thuram 2 seasons ago came off of a double-digit goal, double-digit assist game. And last season, for whatever, he started off extremely hot, but then very much cooled down. And we didn't really see the Marcus Thuram we saw 2 years ago. This game, Marcus Thuram dominated with 2 goals as well. And then you have Bastoni as well dominated. So you have your best players dominating early, which is what you want under a new manager, making sure you hit the ground running. And they all seemed to play for each other. They were all united. So I thought that first game was good for them. we'll see what continues to happen. But their best players are hitting the ground running, which is a good sign for this team because they have an inexperienced manager. So I feel like the manager is going to have to lean on the players a little bit in some cases because the players have more experience in bigger games, in deeper runs and competitions than their manager. And for Inter to thrive, they need their players to really step up this year like they didn't do necessarily last year.
Yeah, and on player personnel, Mons, I think your Mkhitaryan point is very accurate. I think when we talked about Inter in the preview, we talked about them maybe playing with like a 10 or with a left wing, and we thought Mkhitaryan could be a guy to step into that. I think what we saw really shows that Mkhitaryan is not the guy to play there. I think if they're going to kind of bring all three of their midfielders a little bit deeper, there's no reason to play Mkhitaryan. Then when you have Cortezi, Hakan, even Zielinski came off the bench, it just doesn't. It makes sense to move on, and I don't think he's going to be the guy going forward.
And I would assume, I mean, to your guys' point, Sucic had a great game in terms of
he's a lot.
final
There's
third.
no way you take him out. Yeah.
And winning. He won so many balls back for them, near the Torino's 18 to create quick opportunities for Inter. So when everyone is healthy and not on a suspension, I could easily see Barella taking his normal spot in the right center mid next to Dumfries, Hakan as the regista, and then Sucic in the left center mid position. We'll have to see if they put him there, but I would be shocked if they don't run that 3 a lot this season.
Yeah, then last piece on player personnel, not all that significant, but just want to mention the back three we talked about kind of at length in this preview, and they went to Bastoni, Acerbi, and Pavard. I think Acerbi was maybe a surprise for us, but I thought he played exceptionally well. He kind of played good enough where you have to play him again, and I think they're probably going to continue to roll this. But I think
there's also defending Gio Simeone.
That is true, but he also played. He did a lot offensively for me again.
I think that's the problem that Inter has, though, is that listen, Acerbi plays well. When we said they're thin, he's just an old man.
Yeah.
But he plays well. He gives you great 90 minutes, but can he do it game in and game out in a 38 season Serie A campaign in the Coppa Italia in the Champions League? I think we've realized last year, no, he cannot. But because of the high floor, as you and Logan like to say, Bose, that he has Inter feel they don't necessarily need to move on from him. But in my opinion, in the future, in the long run, it's going to hurt them having Acerbi as their kind of center back guy that they rely on.
I think it's a good show. Quickly on Torino, I guess I'll talk about Torino because
your beloved Torino, you mean?
Yeah, I do.
You don't want to add that in? It was
beloved, your boy.
All my beloved Torino. Yeah, I think this is their worst game of the season. I literally don't think it could get worse than this. It was so bad.
It was really bad.
It looked like they had this was their first preseason friendly, but they hadn't practiced before. Like they just got like thrown out there before the game. Baroni was like, okay, here's how we're playing, guys. And then just like threw everybody out there. It didn't look like anybody knew what they were doing. I thought everybody played bad, like from a technical standpoint and from a tactical standpoint. And then on top of that, the goalkeeper situation is very alarming. There was some really, really bad goalkeeping from a Torino perspective. So not a lot to say. I honestly think this is going to be their worst performance of the season. The other thing is they are getting Duvan Zapata back at some point here. He was on the bench but didn't play. That does make a pretty big difference for them. And I will defend them with they went very different formation from last year. New manager, lost their best player, didn't have their striker. So I have some excuses, but overall, I literally think this is the worst game of the season for them.
What's your excuse for not playing Shea Adams?
He came off the bench.
It's hard to get worse.
I know, but how is he not starting? There was just so many, I don't know. There were so many things that they could have done differently. But they also got picked apart, right? Like, again, you don't want Duvan back. You're going to bring in a new striker, Gio Simeone. You don't have Ricci, who is clearly just such a huge part of this roster. And Vanya Milivkovic, who I don't think Vanya Milivkovic could even save them remotely from this game. They were getting murdered out on the pitch. But this Torino team in trouble. I'm calling it now. Early relegation candidate here.
All right. We're going to do our predictions and probably win them transfer market.
Yeah, exactly. Let them Paisans know why we have not came out with the prediction episode yet.
Yeah, we're going to do a full episode where we're all going to take our picks from 20. No, it's not even 20. Whatever it is. Is it 20? I think it's like 18. I always forget. Yeah. Oh, we're going to go bottom of the table.
No, there's
top of the
20.
table.
There's
There
20.
are 20. Okay.
There's
We're going
20
bottom
teams.
of the table, top of the table. We're going to pick who we think is going to finish in every position. We haven't done that yet because we want the transfer window to close. Last year when we did this, we did it before the transfer window closed, and like a bunch of stuff happened, and it definitely changed. Definitely, I think we would have set it up. So we're just waiting for that to end. Not that we're trying to use the start of the season as an excuse at all.
I never want the transfer window to end. I love the transfer window. Mercato.
Also,
I
like
kinda
I always
got it now.
say, the Serie A doesn't really start till 10 games in, so we're not really learning anything in the first 10 matches in terms of like who's going to come in first. But that is why the episode has not dropped yet. But don't worry, it will be coming out soon.
All right, cool. That's it. Turns for Torino. I guess marquee matchup of the weekend. Biggest game in terms of biggest teams. Roma hosted Bologna. Again, like we said, first game under Gasperini, first competitive match under Gasperini for Roma. Hosting a very good Bologna team who we had a lot of good things to say about last year, a lot of kind of positive talk coming into this season. Roma did win this game 1-0, courtesy of a winner from their new signing, Brazilian Wesley, who plays right wing back. His goal was kind of a little bit lucky in terms of a Lukumi, rare error from Lukumi, passing the ball back, giving it away, and then he just snatched up on it. Other notable things in this game, Ciro Immobile started the game, started pretty well. He got hurt. He's now out for, it looks like 1 to 2 months. And then Simon Castro came in for him off the bench. I don't know why he didn't start. He looked very good. He hit the post 2 or 3 times, had some good movement. So fully expect him to be the starter going forward for this team. But it was a pretty good game. It was 1-0, but it was exciting. More of that Gasperini ball that we'd expect. And I think something that's significant is Roma won the possession battle in this game, which is kind of weird because Vincenzo Italiano's entire thing is we're going to keep the ball and not let the other team have it ever. So to see that from a Gasperini team who are usually progress the ball as fast as you possibly can, get it up the field, take every chance you can, a little bit surprising. But I guess I'm not all that shocked. He's basically working with a better squad than he had at Atalanta. Similar formation. It looks like this is going to work. If you beat Bologna at home 1-0 to start the season, like that's a great start. You beat them in possession. They basically have every player they had last year minus Ndoye, which is a big miss. And I don't think Buchanan is the guy that makes the difference in this game. So I think from a Roma perspective, you look at this like, here we go. 1-0. That's one. We're doing better than we did last year already. And you can kind of just roll off of this. I think the other crazy thing, it showed the stands and Claudio Ranieri with Ricky Massara, who had all that success with Milan. Everything for this club is lining up for them to have success this year and into the future now.
I think we're going to see the true Roma team that we were excited about at the beginning of last season come through. We're 1 year older, and for a lot of these guys, typically we would say 1 year older is poor, but these guys are young. There's a young core, young squad, a lot to prove, and I think that they're only going to get so much better under Gasperini. Another thing that I thought was interesting here, Evan Ferguson with the start and with a 70-minute start. So it wasn't just like he came in for 45 and Dobic came in for 45. Dobic only came in the 70th minute. Very interesting. I'm wondering if it was a tactic thing, it was just a game situation thing, or if Dobic is kind of sliding back in that depth chart and Evan Ferguson's playing well in practice. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. We do know that Evan Ferguson from his Brighton days is a talented striker, but I did have high hopes for Dobic coming into the season, knowing that what Retegui did last year with Atalanta under Gasperini and how this team can emulate that same play style. It'll be interesting. Dobic has been linked away. I do not think Roma is actually going to sell him, but he has not been in favor as of the last week. But just an interesting thing to keep an eye on if Evan Ferguson does become the number one starter consistently through the rest of the season.
I think we can start there because I think that this is an interesting discussion and we can kind of back into some other things that happened. But after watching the game, it makes so much sense to me why they went with Evan Ferguson. He's a way more complete player than Dobic in my mind. I think a lot of the problems that I had with Dobic last year, and I think we all had with Dobic last year, was when you leave him on an island, like he kind of struggles. Like he's good back to basket in terms of he can kind of hold the ball for a few seconds, but then he doesn't really ever do anything beyond that. Like he looks at them like, go get in the box to score. Evan Ferguson was all over the field. He was by himself for a ton of the game and still made things happen. In the first 20 minutes, he created like 3 or 4 chances for himself. Kind of unlucky to not net one, And for me, there's no reason to go back to Dopic at this point. In terms of whether or not the club sell him, I think it would be very short-sighted to move on from Dopic because, again, you're in 3 competitions. Evan Ferguson and strikers in general are probably going to go through a drought. It's not like Evan Ferguson scored a goal this game. I think Dopic will get his chances. And I think Gasperini is going to create a system where you can play with 2 strikers at times. So I think Dobic's going to get his chances. But for now, this is Evan Ferguson's position, and that it looks like he's going to hold it.
Yeah. Reports I'm seeing on Twitter in the Roma Twitter sphere is Gasperini isn't the biggest fan of Dopic and is a much bigger fan of Ferguson. For the 70 minutes that I saw Ferguson, he played really well. He had good opportunities. He was able to beat his man a lot. So I'm excited to see what is to come. But I do genuinely think that Dopic in a Gasperini system can be a beast. And them being in multiple competitions, like you said, Bose, I think it would be very dumb to move on from him. But for whatever reason, all the reports I see is that he's not the biggest Dopic fan. So we'll have to see what happens there.
We also know what Gasperini is like with player personnel. He's very stubborn and the whole Lookman saga, whether it was Lookman's fault, Gasperini, he did not handle it well. So little worrying.
Correct. And then just a little bit more that I was kind of surprised about was Cristante got a start next to Kone. I thought he played pretty well.
I thought he played very poor. That was going to be one of the things that I want to talk about.
I didn't think he did awful.
Terrible.
I was just shocked that he was starting, right? Especially with the new signing that Sam and Nate kind of mentioned that they were very excited to see. But like I mentioned earlier, Italian clubs integrate their new signings slowly, although Evan Ferguson got the start from minute 1. So interesting to see. But then also defensively, Roma doing what Roma did last year, another clean sheet. We did see Hermoso, who we thought was kind of on the outs, get a start. I don't think he necessarily played amazing, so we'll see what happens there. But they did sign another center back there as well to kind of strengthen that line as well. But the real person I wanted to highlight here was Wesley, the wing back. We know what Gasperini can do with wing backs. Wesley was highly sought after by Italian clubs, Juventus being one of them, but Roma were able to land him, and he played extremely well in my opinion. I know that the goal was definitely a little lucky because Lukumi made a really bad touch, but he's still in the right place at the right time, and he still provides to finish. And he got extremely pumped when he scored, which is always good to see. Kissing the Roma badge, which is always good to see because he's proud that he's on the Roma team, which I like to see as well. But listen, this man can be a beast in the Gasperini system, right?
Yeah.
We know what he's been able to do with all kinds of wing backs. In this one game alone, he was all over the pitch, winning the ball back, putting in great crosses. He almost had an assist to Dybala. Just an overall great game, in my opinion, and very, very excited for what's to come for Wesley in this Gasperini system because of how effective the wingbacks are in the system.
Yeah, and I think I got to break down tactically because I think that's important, how this actually played out. But on your Wesley point, I agree. And, he really, really reminds me of Dani Alves in the way that he moves and kind of what his skill set is. He's more of like a winger than a right back, I would say, in terms of
I was gonna say
ability.
When I was watching him, I was thinking Quadrado, but that's because
he moves like that. He's so fast too. Like he could be a problem for a lot of teams, and that overload. And then the other thing that I think really helps this for Gasperini is how they set up tactically, kind of what happens, because a lot of the issue that De Rossi had and Ranieri kind of figured out was how to use Sule and Dybala and get other teams in the mix. And with Wesley now, you have a wing back that can kind of satisfy your need offensively and defensively, be like a real winger when you do have the ball, and then give Sule or Dybala that ability to go play as like a number 10. Because on paper, they lined up in a 3-4-2-1 with Sule as a right wing, El Shaarawy as a left wing. But in reality, what happened was Sule was pretty much never on the wing. He was more so number 10. And then El Shaarawy was more of like a traditional left winger, kind of playing how we saw Lookman play a lot of the time, maybe starting a little bit wider. Also got the captain ban, so that was pretty crazy. And then from a midfield perspective, and including the wing backs in there, Angelino, Manu Kone, Bryan Cristante, and Wesley. So you have a traditional guy in Angelino who's really good at crossing it. And then you have Wesley, who's like a dynamic kind of winger to add more kind of potency to your offense. And then just a solid base in Kone and Cristante. The other thing that I saw, which I liked, I'm a little bit surprised about, was Indica, Mancini, and Mosa really were given the reins to go join offense when they saw fit. Indica played, I think, further up the field than I saw him at any point last season. Mancini found his way into the box several times, what I didn't like, and you kind of commented on it, maybe not a negative way, was Hermoso. I don't think he makes any sense to play there. He's not really mobile. He's not great on the ball. And it seems like these guys are going to have a lot of the ball this year and be, again, like I said, given the reins to go participate. So I would like to see a change there. What I thought would actually make a ton of sense is play Divine Wrench there. He's a big guy. He's really athletic and he's really good on the ball. So give him that area and then let him contribute offensively and have the legs to go back on defense. That's my quick thought on it. I just think if you're going to play Hermoso, it makes more sense to play him as the middle guy because he just isn't very mobile and he's just not great at anything for me.
That's fair. One other comment I wanted to say, and this was in regards to kind of what you said earlier, Vos, in terms of the statistics in Roma dominating possession. They didn't let Bologna do anything that Bologna wanted. They were all over him, and this kind of goes to Sam and Nate's point on the Roma preview of Roma just being extremely fit. They were all over Bologna. Bologna could not do anything. They had some chances that were like not real chances. Like their XG was 0.58. They had 0 big chances, but 10 total shots. So Bologna could not do anything against this Roma press. And if Roma are going to defend and kind of do this every game in and game out, it's going to be scary for every team in the Serie A.
Vos, and I guess Mott's too. I had never been huge on Bologna, and I would always get a sock stuffed in my mouth every time that Bologna would play Milan. But does this showing have a cause for any concern going forward, or do you think that this is just a tough start, slow start to the season? They got a couple of things to iron out, but they should be in a good spot.
So I mean, they lost 1-0, and the goal came off of like a really bad error. Like this game easily could have been 0-0 at the end of the day. Like they kind of got unlucky in what the goal did come from, but they didn't play bad, I would say. Like it just didn't really go right for them. I think Roma did more to go and win this game and did deserve to win it. But with Italiano and the way that he wants to play, it always takes a little bit of time for them to get like back in the rhythm of like everybody getting on the ball. Granted, they have a lot of the same team, but like this isn't a bad result. I think that they go into locker room, they're like, oh, we lost 1-0 to Roma, who in my mind should be a Scudetto, not a favorite, but they're going to be in the mix this year. Bologna, not really at that level yet. So you hold your own, you open the season in Rome. Like this isn't the easiest game. So I think a 1-0 thing, you're like, okay, we got our loss out of the system. Let's just go back, bounce back next game. These things are going to happen. Italiano's been there. The players have been there. I still feel really good about them. I think they can compete for a European spot again. And I'm not going to like look at this game as like a total failure for them. It's more so like you're getting started. And 1-0 isn't the end.
Yeah. Listen, I think Vos' point to Italiano they're starting slow. That is true. They started extremely slow last year, and then they were able to pick it up. But it's a lot of the same players, so you would expect him to probably pick up where he left off, and they were flying high. And to kind of go against you both, like they very much had a chance of Champions League football last season, and they're in the Europa League. They won the Copa, so I think Bologna this season said we can make this push for Champions League football this year, and so they had to definitely compete. Although I do think they did compete in this game. But Italiano said in the press that like he got frustrated that the transfer market is still open because he had players, and I assume that the player is Lukumi, wanting to leave because he's heavily linked to the Prem, getting more money in terms of wages. So he was frustrated with that. But so not all the players were locked in for sure, but that's all. I also think some of this has to go on Italiano, and this goes back to why I was not a fan of Immobile coming to Bologna or even them getting Bernardeschi. Like, what are you doing getting old-ass Italians who left the league, and one of them is 37 who gets injured in the first 20 minutes of the game, and Bernardeschi who didn't make it at Juve and then went to the MLS and hasn't played at that level in so long. I think that they went after not necessarily the best players, which I was shocked about because Bologna do such a good job of evaluating talent buying for low and then selling for high. But I can see Bologna being in for maybe a tough season this year if Lukumi leaves and then they don't replace him and they're older with the older guys they brought in. I don't necessarily see them doing what they did last year.
Yeah, and just one other thing that I think it's probably worth mentioning of like big kind of like taking a step back. Lewis Bergerson didn't play, so like he's still like that's your best player really, and he was really not in the team at all last year until the very late parts of the season. So you're gonna get him. Juan Miranda didn't play. He was hurt or he was suspended from last year technically. He was a massive part of the offense of this team. And then the other thing is Zortea just got there. He got a few minutes, but he's being integrated and he provided a ton of offense for Cagliari last year for wide areas. So those are three guys that are like realistically in your best starting 11 that weren't even really in this game at all. So that is just one other thing I think that's worth mentioning because this team with Lewis Ferguson is a lot fucking better. And I think they're going to be okay this year. I'm not really worried about them at all.
Well, I mean, you should definitely be worried if Tommaso Bobega's in your starting 11. So that's always be a fun time for.
It was like that last year, dude. And
Someone's
higher than Milan. So I mean, Milan probably
who should be worried is Logan, the Milan fan, after match week 1. And why is that, Bo?
All right, let's get into it. This is
the last game we're really going to get in deep on here. AC Milan, first game of the season, opening it up at the San Siro against newly promoted Cremonese. Got to go and get after it. You got a new manager, some new signings. The sky is the limit for Milan. Not quite how it goes. They lose this game 2-1. Federico Bonazzoli from Cremonese scores one, and Federico Vascherano. But Pavlovic gets one, Lugs. There's your silver lining. Back in the team. Lugs, initial
top scorer, Pavlovic.
Well, before we go into the Logs take on Milan, Cremonese's second goal already arguably goal of the season potentially. So if you haven't seen it, go look. It's basically like a bicycle kick or a side volley, whatever you want to call it. Very nice goal. But obviously the headline here is Milan losing match week 1 at home in the San Siro to a newly promoted Cremonese, who, by the way, they got promoted and then they basically changed up everything in terms of their players, manager. So it's a very new team to the Serie A. And Milan is losing, picking up where they left off last year.
Did that feel good, Mats? Did you like saying that? This, unfortunately not what I was hoping to see out of this squad. What I will preface it with, and not to make excuses, but I guess it'll come across as an excuse. No Leao in this game, picked up a knock in the Coppa Italia game against Bari. No, Jushari came in incredibly late into the game. I wish we saw more of him. Ricci did not play at all. No Coney de Winter as well. I guess we're going back to that whole Serie A. We don't play the new guys, but in any case, the biggest thing for me was, and something that we had last year, had the year before, a lot of pointless possession, a ton of pointless possession. And it really stems from the fact that, and we already knew this, so I don't know why we didn't prepare for it and why we haven't made changes to move past this efficiency. The center backs have zero ability to add anything to the offense of this team. They are incapable of passing the ball more than 10 feet in front of them to Luka Modric, who was just a lone pendulum in the midfield. Not what I was hoping that he would be doing for this team. I was hoping that he would be playing similar to how KDB was allowed to just free roam and be creative the entire time. Modric was literally the guy on the ball the entire game. And with that being said, it was incredibly easy to defend because all you had to do was just shadow Modric. And if you had to pass it to Ruben Loftus-Cheek, he was just kind of dribbling it into no man's land. And even worse, if you passed it to Fofana this game, he literally just booted it to nobody.
I don't think anybody passed it to Fofana this game. Like I don't remember any moment where like he really had the ball.
He had a couple moments where he either just bombed it up the field or if he had gotten it on the top of the box, was just taking random shots from 40 feet out and getting it blocked. If you look at the stat sheet here, it does not tell a great story. It's 24 shots, 2 big chances, a couple on goal, almost 2.0 XG. But if you watch the game, I would say 15, 16, 17 of those shots were just blocked at the top of the box. Had no shot of even getting towards the net. So no quality offense here. Santi Jimenez continues to look
Terrible.
like he's just a lethargic, lazy striker.
Had an open goal on a corner.
The one had an open goal on the corner kick. What I will say is that we know his finishing is good.
Is it though?
You can see it. You can see it on the goal that got called back for being offsides. I mean, that left foot is just actually awesome. But for him to get in those positions and to get the service that he needs, like he doesn't try hard enough to get into the positions that want him to get the shots.
If you're a striker and you're only good at finishing on your strong foot, is your finishing actually good?
I would say his finishing is great on his left foot.
Yeah, but if that's his only thing that he can do as a striker, he can't. If he was good at finishing, he would have scored that goal on the corner with his head. He can't use his.
Well, I mean, like, I would just say that, like, if you look at Dusan Vlahovic, perchance, or for example, in years past, he can't finish on either foot. So having one foot is definitely a plus in my mind.
Has he shown that he's good at finishing with his?
Yes, he has. And if you watched him, I know you guys hate him. I think there's something there, and it's just so awful that he's so lazy.
You know what this sounds like? This sounds like early days Dusan Vlahovic on Juve, where it's like, oh, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
Well, I hope it happens. Although there are sneakily comments coming from Santi's agent that he wants to leave. I don't love that.
You guys brought in
I don't
a
love
striker.
that Anything else from the peanut gallery, Mox? I'm trying to tell the Paisans that Milan is going to be okay. Or actually, I'm just telling myself that. The other thing is that Pulisic playing as a second striker is just not. That's not.
He wasn't He wasn't really.
I know he was, but he needs to either be playing as a wide,
which he was. He was a left
winger.
winger. He was a left winger.
Or playing more as that 10, but we shouldn't even need him to play as that 10 because we have Luka Modric, but Luka Modric is playing in the back line because our back line can't pass the ball.
So let me just break down.
It's like a whole.
Let me just talk
and one more thing. The defense from the wingbacks is still fucking horrendous. Salamaker's on one end, just the laziest guy I've ever seen on the cross to the bike. Then on the bike, Alex Jimenez is in God. He's just watching pigeons. He's watching pigeons as this guy is biking it over his head. So the outside back defense hasn't been solved yet. I guess that wasn't a last season thing. That's now going to continue for years to come. We're going to be plagued by our outside backs. The ghost of Emerson and Davide Calabria are still here, and we need to also figure that out.
All right, Logs, that was a big info dump. So let me walk you back here. Give the Paisans listening a little bit picture of what
this was my therapy session. I needed it.
Your whole life is a therapy session, brother. So here's how Allegri lined up. I think it was a little bit surprising to...
No, it was not. You guys, did you watch him on Juventus the second?
I know, but it was still different because... Okay, let me just say what happened. 3-5-2, backline Pavlovic, Gabbia, Tomori. The only kind of surprise there, I would say, is Tomori off the right. We were saying it should be De Winter, so nothing really crazy there. Estupinian and Salamakers, the wing backs. Again, nothing crazy there. Midfield 3, Fofana, Modric, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Ruben Loftus-Cheek was kind of like a right winger starting position a little bit, but really was coming in playing as like a number 10 essentially for most of the game. And then up top on paper again, Santi Jimenez and Christian Pulisic. Santi Jimenez was very much a number 9. Pulisic more so starting off the left in a position you would expect like a Rafael Leao to be playing. Get wide, get on the ball, and kind of attack from there. And then on the right side where you really expect Pulisic when Leao and Pulisic are playing, kind of being like that come in and play as a number 10. So then what happens is Salamakers becomes your right wing. In this game, Loftus-Cheek like your number 10, Santi Jimenez your number 9, Christian Pulisic your left wing, with Estupinian wrapping around him. The midfield 2 of Fofana and Modric was very weird because Modric was essentially being a number 6 and dropping into the back line to go facilitate play forward. Fofana, I have literally no idea what his job was up until they got to the final third.
It was to be not.
He basically did nothing in build up other than take up space and run into other people's area. I literally don't know what his job was. And then in the final third, it was kind of like a Modric and Fofana were almost like in a pivot is what it kind of looked like to me. And then out of possession, it was a 3-5-2 with a flat midfield 3 with Loftus-Cheek, Modric in the middle, which I also don't think makes a lot of sense, and Fofana as the left centerman. So that's what happened. Kind of odd.
Let me tell you guys, from an Allegri expert here, why this setup went the way it was, okay? This is a very similar thing he did with Juventus in the 2.0 stint, 2.0 Allegri. What he's doing here and what he's going to do is he's going to play Pulisic or Leao when Leao is healthy and can play in the Federico Chiesa role in the 3-5-2. That's basically a winger, but it's lined up as a striker. Okay. Then you're going to have Jimenez or maybe your new striker in the Dusan Vlahovic role. That's the striker. The problem with that is, yes, Vos, which the breakdown was good, and when you're on the ball, it looks like a 4-3-3, but it's really not, because he sets them up so deep, although they have possession, that they don't have enough guys forward to try and score goals. And that's why you're taking 20 shots from the outside the 18-yard line, because no one is getting forward. The reason why Luka Modric is playing in the middle is because Allegri will take his most I don't want to say consistent, his best forward on the ball and put him in the middle, although that's not his right position, because he trusts him there, aka Locatelli, using Locatelli as a regista, although it wasn't good enough, although that's not Locatelli's normal position. So Modric, not his normal position, but he has Allegri's the most trust. Allegri has the most trust in him to progress the play, to keep the ball, to not give it away. So he is going to throw Modric in the middle. Now you're going to have Fofana and Loftus-Cheek being the Rabiot role, which is just run up and down the box and like mash people and smash people and try.
But Fofana wasn't even like allowed to do that. That's what just didn't make any sense.
But
no, Fofana was all over the place, bro. He had looked like a chicken with his head cut off. He was fouling everyone at the top of the box. He wasn't even in the right defensive spot.
But that's my point, is that Rabiot was never really anything besides running around and trying to win the ball back. And now I'm honestly forgetting who he even played on the right center mid under Allegri.
Weston McKennie?
Yeah, Weston McKennie and other people. But also Allegri is the king, the absolute king of playing the more experienced player or the older guy over the young players, which is why Tomori got the start, which is why Modric started over Ricci, which is why Loftus-Cheek started over Cesari. So that's what Allegri does. I wanted to be on the Milan episode to tell you guys this is going to happen with Allegri. I obviously couldn't, but now I'm telling you. However, what will happen is he is good, and people do. And his first stint, he was terrible at it in terms of integrating the young players in. His second stint, he got much better at it. He will do it. He will do it slowly, okay? But I do expect Ricci to come in and play in that Modric spot, and Cesari to come in over Loftus-Cheek, and then put Modric in the Fofana role. And I think that would be a very, very strong midfield. It will happen. I just don't know how long. I also think there was a part of me that said Allegri said, I'm gonna throw this game and go to the management and say, we need this, this, and this for me to do well. And those would be a striker and a center back. You guys are getting your striker, some guy from Sporting, 20 years old. Makes no sense. You're paying about almost 25, 30 million for him. You had the same player in Camarda and you let him go. Classic Serie A right there. Doesn't make any sense. I don't know who you guys would bring in for center back. I don't think you're linked with anybody. So you're a very incomplete team. You have an amazing midfield, but that's it. And then you have Leao, which can help. You're on 1 game a week. Allegri knows how to win 1 game a week, but a lot of question marks for me all over the pitch for Milan.
Yeah, the striker's really a big thing for me, and I actually hope that the deal doesn't go through for Harder coming from Sporting. It's actually done between the two teams. Harder has not given the green flag yet. Actually, he has not decided that he's ready to come to this quote-unquote project. So I am completely out on that. I do not want another half-assed guy on the team that's not ready to play for this legacy that we have going. I don't want you to sleep on Pulisic. I think that he's still going to be an immensely important player for us. But if we continue to have Modric, who we need to be the creative force here, play so deep, if we don't play Ricci, we're going to have issues. But again, I think first game here, to Matz's point about just Allegri's tendencies about not playing young guys so early, I think that this will turn around rather quickly once we do get those guys on the pitch, because they're incredibly talented. This was a horrible showing. I will also say that Cremonese didn't look as bad as I thought Cremonese would be. They've got a couple of good players out there. I thought Ogrecki was actually pretty good. He didn't score, but was all over the pitch. And some of these guys on defense were pretty decent, although our offense just
Well, yeah,
sucks. So
Jimenez
I'm not-
made them look pretty nasty, I will say.
I mean,
Jimenez is an absolute liability.
think part of the-
We've obviously seen.
I think part of the thing that was so frustrating about this is that the Luka Modric rule, like, it just makes so much sense to play Ricci there, because everything that Luka Modric was asked to do is exactly what Ricci wants to do. So, like,
Right.
you're putting your most creative player as, like, at the base of the team, like, as far back as you possibly can get him. And, like, to your point, Loads, part of the issue is that center backs get on the ball so much, but they're all inept and they literally can't pass it more than like 5 or 6 yards. It's bizarre. And there was a couple of times where, like, they were just booting the ball up the field and Modric was like standing in the middle of the field wide open. Like, why did you do that? Like, you just kick the ball. Like, and it's really a problem, because then it limits what you can do, because you need to play. Like, part of the reason Modric is forced to go back there is they can't play with the ball. So you have to bring people further down the field, and then you're leaving Jimenez isolated and getting the worst out of him because of that. And it was bad. But I will say, I have one positive from this game.
Please give me something.
I could see what they were trying to do tactically. In that one, there was not a single point in time last year where I was like, this is what Milan are trying to do when they have the ball. I at least saw that in this game, which is a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
What
I mean,
months?
I think once you get the midfield pairing right, which I don't think it's hard to do, it's Ricci, Jasari, and Modric. That will be lethal, because they can play with the ball, they can help the center backs out, and they will be able to play in behind Leao and Pulisic. And if you guys get a striker, and Estupinian and Salamakers can put in good crosses. So I think there's a recipe for success here. It's just, when is Allegri going to go to it?
Hopefully next week against Lecce.
Yeah.
So
All right, well, we'll see.
So Camarda doesn't make us look like fools.
We'll see. But to bring you guys through the rest of the games here, we had Lecce go to Genoa in a snooze fest, 0-0 there. Fiorentina went to Cagliari. Like we said, that game ended in 1-1 off of a 94th minute equalizer from Luperto. And Mondragora actually got on the sheet early in that one. In Como, they beat the piss out of Lazio, 2-0 win there. Like we said, Nico Paz scored a banger of a free kick, and Duvikas, new striker, right? He got on the sheet.
He was there last year, but let's not forget that the pass from Nico Paz to Duvikas was phenomenal.
And the turn before
phenomenal.
the pass was phenomenal
I mean,
as well.
it was
Como,
a thing of beauty.
Fabregas had Sarri walk into Como, and he absolutely laid out a masterclass performance against his old manager. And Sarri and Lazio had no idea what to do. Como were pressing them all over the place. They had the ball at all times. Lazio did not know what to do. They looked very bad. If Sarri does not turn this around, Lazio are going to be in big trouble, in my opinion, this season. I don't know why, last part about this, I don't know why Sarri did not play Rovella. Did not start Rovella. He subbed him in. I don't know if he was hurt or if he was, what the reason was, but don't mess. Baroni overachieved with this team by just relying on Vos's boys, Rovella and Guendouzi. Don't fix what's not broken. You rely on those two. They had great seasons last year. Stick with it, because they could not do anything against Como, and they're going to be in trouble if they don't switch it up.
Back to Nico Paz really quick. For Paisans that weren't with us last season, Nico Paz is a friend of the pod. This kid is absolutely stupendous. He's the leader, the little lads by the lake. Just after this game, Tottenham sends over an offer of $75 million for Nico Paz. Como says, "Get the fuck out of here. Never leaving." Except he's going back to Real. There's a couple of things in the background as to why they said no.
Yeah.
But in any case, this guy is worth $75 million. Keep an eye out. It'd be hard to miss him if you watch Como. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, and he's also, 19 years old or 20, and he's going to be one of the best players in the world soon. Hopefully we can keep him in the Serie A. I don't know. Como have they're the richest owners in the league, so they could potentially keep him. He likes playing at Como, but they're going to have to make a push for European football. But one more thing before we move on is Fabregas said, and that I want to talk about, is Fabregas said in an interview that somebody asked him, like, how come he doesn't have any young Italians? And he said, like, we try to scout young players because that's who we have to scout at Como to attract. And he said, we do not have any young Italians right now because it's really hard to find them. They would rather play for the Milan, Romas, Juventuses, Inters of the world. which makes sense because they're a bigger club than Como. But he said that it's easier to find younger talent in Spain, and that's why he's got a lot of young Spanish players or a lot of young players that are not Italian. But he did say they're currently always looking, and if there is ever a question or a 50-50, this guy or this guy, and one of them's Italian, Fabregas is going to go with the Italians. But I do think it's a little frustrating that a team like Como that wants to play young talent can't find any young Italians because we really don't have any. So it's a little frustrating. Just
Love it from Fabregas. Yeah, I mean, everything he does is we are in agreement with. We love Fabregas here.
Just my rant for the day.
All right, well, we're kicking it right back to you because Parma went to Juve and 2-0 win. Good start for Tudor, and Jonathan David got on the score sheet. And Dusan Vlahovic off the bench. And off of that, he might be staying at Juve now, Mats. What happened in this one? Because I actually missed it.
Possibility of Dusan Vlahovic staying, hopefully not. First half, kind of a snooze fest. More of the same from Juventus last season, lacking creativity in the final third. Parma set up just so deep in the 18. They had literally all 10 guys within the 18, so it was very hard for Juventus to break down. But then in the second half, Kenan Yildiz, as I mentioned in the season preview for Juventus, we will go with how Yildiz brings us, was able to take on his man one-on-one and put in a very nice on-the-ground cross off of a corner kick. And Jonathan David, who I also mentioned, is a poacher's poacher, just knows where to be in the box, made an incredible run to just get a slight flick on into the goal. Very nice goal. And then Parma had to kind of open up a little bit to try to get the goal to equalize, and that let Juventus counterattack. And Dusan Vlahovic actually scored a goal from Yildiz's assist, and Dusan provided the pass to Yildiz as well into space. But listen, this is the most expensive super sub in the world. Do not let his 2 goals, this one against Parma and one against Atalanta, fool you. He is not a good player. Juventus cannot go into the season having him be the second striker behind Jonathan David. It will not go well. We do not need him on the team. I'm hoping, praying that this just allows another team, maybe Milan, to cough up the money needed in order to pay for Dusan, and so we can offload him. But I know it's a lot of moving parts, and it's going to be very, very hard to do.
Awesome, Mats. Love the breakdown. Keeping it rolling. Pisa, newly promoted Pisa, went to Atalanta, 1-1 game, so big result for Pisa. Isaac Hean had an own goal for Atalanta, and then Scamacca got a start and got off the sheet. Other notable one in this one is Scalvini was fully back. He played. He looked good, so good to see that. And then the last game, we have Verona go to Udinese, 1-1 in this one. Christensen and Serdar. I am officially decreeing this game as the worst game of the season in terms of whenever these two teams plays. Don't watch the game. But that break, that's somebody take over. I got the dog squeaking.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing about Verona. They were the worst team I saw play until I saw Torino play. So it was a absolute shit show on Monday. Thank God I just didn't want to do my work. Don't tell my boss, but I just did not do any work. I just watched footy all day. And it was honestly one of the worst days that I had to watch footy because these teams were absolutely trash. But with that being said, we've got some better matchups coming up in match week 2, boys. We're rolling right into it, shall we? Shall I just knock them off real quick? We've got Cremonese at home against Sassuolo. Battle the newly promoted. They know each other very well. We'll see how that comes out. That's a Friday game. We've got Milan going to Lecce. Battle of Camardo's homecoming, except he's not going back to San Siro.
And
so we'll see how he plays. And Saltillo. Yeah, but Saltillo, like, just didn't really. I'm just going to forget that he even came. We got Como going to Bologna. That's going to be a great game. Again, guys, tune in. 2 of our favorite teams on the pod. That's going to be a really exciting one. Atalanta goes to Parma. Cagliari goes to Naples, playing Napoli. Roma is going to the Leaning Tower. They're playing Pisa. Juventus is going to the Salamis, playing Genoa by the seaside. Fiorentina is taking it to the worst team in Serie A, Torino. We have Udinese going to the San Siro, playing Inter. And to wrap it all up, we've got Verona, Lazio. I'm calling that one a rock fight.
All right, that's match week 2, which brings us into everybody's favorite segment. It's officially back. We did miss match week 1, so we're going match week 2. Colpi de Luna, for people that haven't been with us This is our moonshot pick of the week. 3-leg parlay. We're giving you a leg, and we would love to hear what your legs are out there. I'll start with mine. I've got Atalanta money line minus 105.
Good value.
I like this one.
That's good value.
Atalanta at Parma. They're gonna get goals. They're gonna win this one.
Listen, dude, Atalanta is not under Gasperini anymore. I think you need to get out of your head that they're gonna get goals. Their manager literally came out and said, "We are not gonna have goals this season." So that you're all reliable of Atalanta scoring and getting goals needs to change to probably Roma because Gasperini left.
Bro, that's a good point. So why don't you let the Paz Jones know you're all reliable here? Because you went right back to the point reliable.
That's a good point. But my own reliable is reliable because it is Juventus money line. We're no longer under Thiago Motta, who we only got draws. We're now under Tudor, where we only get wins, and he delivers us Champions League football. And so I got Juventus money line coming in at minus 115.
And to round it all out, we're riding against the coldest team in all the land. We got Fiorentina money line again going to Torino. Torino looked like absolute dog shit. We got plus 135, immensely good value. Stefano Pioli, the boy, the myth, the legend,
am not
going to take the win here.
This is incredible value. What this tells me is you did not watch the Fiorentina game because you are fully betting on the man that you constantly shit on. And he's doing the exact same thing he did with Milan.
Yeah, but
I constantly said that I was wrong.
And remember, he announced or issued an official apology in Italian on this very show last season.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So we're back.
I did apologize.
All right. So Colby, we got Juve money line, Atalanta money line, Fiorentina money line comes in at plus 741. Average Colby.
You guys know the deal.
Average Colby. 741. Not the fattest, not the
Rather
lightest.
average.
No
600 usually.
No slump busters in the first week. So
certainly not. We're going for the hills, boys. But hey, you know what to do with the Colby. All the Paisans know from season 1. All the Paisans from season 2 need to know. This is how you deal with the Colby. You bet all of them. You bet them singly. You bet the parlay. You bet around robin. But what you got to do is just bet the Colby. It's as easy as that. You put $100 in, you're getting $841 back. That's just how the math works. And we're here to make you money. If you bet every Colby from last season, you would be plus money. I don't know how much, but I know it for a fact. And that's that.
All right, well, that's it for us, guys. That was Matchweek 1. We'll be back next week bringing you Matchweek 2. And I think the transfer window is closing soon.
September 1st.
So we'll be on here as well to give you guys our full table predictions. That is maybe my favorite episode we did last year, so I'm really excited about that one. But that's it for us. I think Logan already told you guys where you can listen to us.
Tell them again.
Yeah, Logan, tell them again.
You know where to find us. Again, listen, we're doing Fantasy Serie A. Please follow, please subscribe, please give us 5 stars. We'll let you in the league. It's immensely important for us to keep growing. We are growing at a rapid pace. Like I said, get on the train or get run over. You can find us on all of your favorite socials, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, at Calcio Culture FC, and on all your favorite streaming sites, Spotify and Apple Pods. For the first time this season, after Matchweek 1, Mats, take us away.
Paisanos, do not be like a Goots and Forza Calcio.